Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of SmartTake with Klaviyo. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Kira. I'm one of Smartbug's e-commerce product marketing managers. And today we're embarking on a journey through all things e-commerce marketing. So if you're in the e-commerce game, you know that BFCM or Black Friday, Cyber Monday is a monumental event in the retail calendar. It's a time of year when shoppers are on the hunt for the best deals and businesses are gearing up to bring in new customers and hit their revenue targets for the year. But there is a catch. Standing out in the crowded BFCM landscape requires a lot more than just a discount strategy or a flashy website banner. It takes strategy, finesse, and the right tools. And that's where Klaviyo comes in. So in today's episode, we're going to dive deep into the heart of BFCM marketing and all things preparations for that campaign. And we'll be joined by in-house experts from Smartbug. We have Ariel and Alan with us, as well as our very own Klaviyo expert, Dan, where they'll share their insights, tips, and best practices to help you optimize your BFCM email and SMS marketing strategies. So let's jump in and get to know our speakers. I'll start with you, Ariel, if you'd like to give a brief introduction.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ariel. I'm one of the e-commerce sales specialists here. I work daily with clients, just trying to find the right fit. But overall, I love digging deep into Klaviyo accounts and doing audits and really pinpointing the different areas for optimization and then understanding, what other omni-channels our clients are working with, because we want to make sure there's a cohesive strategy that we provide for our clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Ariel. And then Alan, would you like to give us a little introduction as well?
Yes, thank you, Kira. And hi, everyone. So in my, let's say, short professional growth career, I worked as email developer and designer and kind of moved to a more technical and strategic consultation. Right now, I'm working as a Smartbug's e-commerce service design manager, and I specialize in next level problem solving and pushing the limits within the creative and client services departments. So employing a user-first approach that I refined over a decade of e-commerce work, kind of being part of executing more than 1 million emails in various email service providers, gave me a broad understanding of e-commerce marketing and technological capabilities.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Alan and Ariel are some of our top-notch e-commerce experts within Smartbug, so we're really glad to have you guys both here today. And then last but certainly not least, we have Dan, who's joining us from Klaviyo. So Dan, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Kira. And thank you, Alan and Ariel. Super glad to be here sharing this stage. I'm Dan Goldstein. I am an SMS partner manager over here on the Klaviyo agency team, and I work with agencies, much like Smartbug, to determine new opportunities for growth with SMS, tying SMS into email, and then of course now really leveraging and diving into those omni-channel strategies, much like Ariel mentioned a little bit earlier on. So super excited to be here talking BFCM. This is my favorite time of year in this industry. So I think we have some really great content and insights to really dive into today. So again, appreciate being here and looking to dive in.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. We're excited. All right. Let's jump in. So the first thing we want to chat through today is getting ready for your BFCM campaigns as it pertains to data. So obviously, as marketers, we all know data is going to be the backbone for all of our campaigns, all of our strategies. And BFCM is not immune to that. We definitely need to be looking at historical data, looking at key takeaways from last year's performance, and even looking at emerging trends in 2023 as it pertains to the holidays and what we can expect from consumers. So I'm going to pass the mic over to our panelists, ask a few questions. So first off, is there any trends that you've seen throughout the year that you think brands should be aware of going into the holiday season?
Good question. I can actually dive in right here if that works for everyone. At Klaviyo, right, we see many trends throughout the year. Of course, a lot of them actually stem from the previous BFCM as well. Ones that I'm really interested in, of course, I think I might be a little biased here with SMS, but really leaning into SMS for its desired outcomes, right? And leaning into SMS as the best channel for a couple of different use cases. I'm thinking about things like time sensitivity, new offers and early access where, hey, maybe we as a brand, maybe we don't want to really lean into promotions or discounts, right, throughout the year. SMS is a great opportunity to maybe pull in some new people with things like early access. I'm loving things like signing up for new sale announcements where an SMS list can get something new and exciting compared to that of an email list. And one other thing I want to mention here for trends is I'm really excited to see more and more brands and agencies telling their email list about their SMS list, right? Like, hey, look at all this great value we got over here for SMS, new access, limited products that we can only buy through SMS as a channel. And I think there's some really great opportunity to actually leverage this type of strategy into BFCM especially. So really excited to see how that kind of looks as we get closer and closer to the holiday season.
Yeah, I think it's actually really fitting that you mentioned those use cases for SMS, just because the past week or so, I've been getting a lot more texts from brands that I am subscribed to, preparing me for BFCM. And so it's so fitting knowing that we're doing this topic and talking about it today, because it's, the beginning of September, and I'm already getting messages from brands I forgot that I was even subscribed to that I might not typically get messages from, because I'm not maybe the most active when it comes to SMS messages as I am with email. But it has kind of brought me back into a couple of brands and given me some ideas for holiday gifts. So I think that's a really fitting strategy and something that people can also leverage, because I think SMS can feel very scary because it's so personalized and direct to the person. But it's still a way that you can kind of expand your list and bring them back in during the time where it's really going to matter most.
Yeah, Kira, it's funny you say that, because because it was Labor Day last weekend, I've been getting some sale text messages and emails. And what's really interesting is that I can actually tell the brands that aren't using Klaviyo for both email and SMS. And by not doing that, there's like so much incohesivity in the language from like text messages and emails. Also, the frequency, like I got so many text messages and so many emails from like one particular brand. I won't mention who they are. But, again, at the end of the day, it's by having everything in one unified platform, you really get to understand like that customer data, and you can actually turn one of the two channels off if need be. But at the end of the day, you definitely don't want to bombard them with too many emails and too many text messages. So that's kind of one of the things that I always kind of like to pinpoint is, like I said, I've been experienced that, and I really wanted to unsubscribe, but now I'm like, hey, so I noticed your text messages past weekend. But yeah, so making sure that you have that cohesivity in your language when you are doing email and SMS, and especially if you're not on SMS with Klaviyo, then we definitely kind of should have that kind of conversation about why.
I think it's really interesting, us as marketers, right? Looking at some of these channels from the consumer point of view, right? I think that there are a lot of us maybe who have received text messages, things of that nature, whether it's over Labor Day from one brand, a lot of different sales or a lot of different promotions, or, other times of year. I think as marketers, we need to look at it from that consumer point of view, but in an updated way. I speak to a lot of different agencies and marketers and brands who say, well, when I first started getting SMS and first started receiving SMS as a consumer, I didn't really like it too much, but now I realize I have to do it. Having that updated view of, okay, this is where the market is currently, at least in the US, it can say different for other nations, but just leaning in and thinking like the consumer, right? To not over inundate and to send a message that you would want to receive yourself. Just a quick little tidbit there, because I always like discussing that with brands and agencies.
Mm-hmm.
I really agree on that, but Dan and Ariel, so maybe adding a bit in there as like Klaviyo offering different marketing channels to reach out the audience is really perfect way. I mean, for someone SMS does not work, for someone email works better than as I mentioned SMS itself, and vice versa. So it is just finding an optimal way to reach out to the audience and kind of get as much as possible engagement in it. So, and also to add more context in it, keeping it in a same kind of platform. It is important because you are way more fond of creating the content and building the brand awareness during the customer journey and preparing them for Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So looking deeper too into data, historical data, what are some, if you guys can share maybe like a key takeaway that you've learned from past experiences with BFCM? To put you on the spot.
I'll take a outlook point of view here. I think one of the things that I've noticed is that I have brands coming to me in October being like, hey, I need help with Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategy planning. And, we definitely can help, but the sooner you start planning, the sooner you can get pre-sales sales in, and also just getting your clients excited about upcoming sales or upcoming promotions, or just making your VIPs feel special. I mean, now is the best time to start planning that strategy. And like I said, getting everybody excited for it. So I say the trend that I see is don't leave it to the last minute, start talking, reach out to Klaviyo, reach out to Smartbug as soon as possible, because we really want to help you put together a well-defined strategy to make sure you have a successful season.
Yeah, I definitely got a +1 that, Ariel. I think I always say this whenever I'm speaking about BFCM, when's the best time to start planning, Dan? Yesterday, right? Last week, last month, last BFCM even, right? We can collect this information throughout the entire year that we can leverage for BFCM specifically. And don't get me wrong, like you mentioned, if you want to get started in October, that's okay, right? There are certain things that can happen that cause you to get started a little bit later. I'm not going to sit here and BFCM shame anyone, of course, but when we get started earlier, we can collect that first party data, right? Easier that we can then have a plan for BFCM. I think that, when we're creating, and I know we'll talk about this later, when we're creating our specific BFCM flows, content, right? Copy, things of that nature, all of that's imperative and really important. But having a plan and sticking to it can be really, really valuable. I think we've all seen a brand who has a plan, they're getting ready, and then the beginning of November hits and they're like, wait, here's a new shiny object, let's go chase that. I totally understand that. I think we all do, it's just human psychology. But sticking to a plan and iterating small opportunities throughout, in my opinion, is the best way to get ready for BFCM. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything else to add to that, but I think that, prior planning prevents poor performance, right? My dad said it to me every single day when I was growing up, so I have to reiterate it here today.
Absolutely. I mean, all of us kind of need to plan the budget. And if we are aware of the brand, if we are aware about the products that we want to purchase for BFCM, it's already sale made, or let's say just pre-sale. So the sooner we start, the more we prepare and kind of nurture that specific customer and kind of have the understanding of the audience that interacts with our brand, will offer us a deep understanding also in, let's say, trajectory of our goals and Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales expectations. So yes, sooner better.
That's something you probably, if you've been around on our Smart Takes before, seen some of our content, we preach that all the time. Starting early on your BFCM strategies for the best success. You want to hit those goals and make sure you're really communicating with your audience effectively. And the best way to do that is to get started early so that you know how to do that. So for those, this is kind of our last question within this section here, talking about data, but for those that are currently within and using the platform Klaviyo, what is some data that they can look at within Klaviyo to help them think about preparing for BFCM?
I can take this one because I could talk about data all day if that works for the team. I know I mentioned earlier in my last spiel about zero and first party data. Just as a quick little refresher, because Klaviyo, I think we make up a lot of our own terms sometimes. That zero party data, that's the data that we are receiving from a consumer and they're willingly giving it to us. So I'm thinking things like, form submissions, quizzes, text to join keywords where we can automatically update a profile property. That information where someone has dry or oily skin, that's that zero party data, right? And then first party data is the type of data that we're all probably pretty aware of. Clicks, time on site, form submission rate, things of that nature. So when I think about zero and first party data, there are a couple different things that really stick out. for either or, I love to get an understanding of, where is the consumer? Where are they actually located? Are they located near any of our brick and mortar locations? Is there an opportunity to leverage location-based segments or location-based targeting to really get down into the nitty-gritty of that personalized messaging? I love location. Other things here, though, we can pull in things like, VIP opportunities and VIP segments, really understanding, hey, who are our best consumers, right? Are they buying from us early, often, and at a high volume? Your VIPs, your high rollers, this type of information where we can see order placed, right? A number of emails clicked, right? Revenue per recipient. All of this information is super vital to get targeted, right? Like the data doesn't really work unless we're leveraging it in the right way. And I think if I say that with Klaviyo, right? Klaviyo runs on data. Without data, Klaviyo just is. So really diving in and getting those data insights, specifically around, areas where we can lean into those high spenders is one of my key recommendations going into BFCM this year.
No, that's really helpful, especially for brands. I know we have a lot of like newer brands that come in and they're maybe not totally used to Klaviyo and used to all of the data that they're able to access within Klaviyo. So just telling brands like, oh, analyze your data can be kind of scary for them because it's like, well, I can look at the numbers all day long, but like, what should I be looking at and what does this mean? So thank you so much for sharing that, Dan. Now let's look going into our next question here. So we've looked at the data, we understand who our customers are, where they're coming from, what they're looking for, and now we want to make sure our automations that either are existing or maybe you don't have automations set up yet are set up to where they're going to perform the best, and we want to make sure we're getting conversions out of them. So automation, as we know, is really important to streamline all of our marketing efforts, especially during BFCM, because there's going to be so much going on. The last thing your team will have time to do is hit send on a bunch of emails or SMS campaigns. So getting things up and automated is very important. So I want to pass it over to the panelists and just talk about what are some essential automation flows that brands should really make sure they have set up prior to BFCM and the holiday season?
I'll kind of jump into this one because, as I mentioned, I perform a lot of audits. And one of the things that I see is a common trend across all of our DTCs, there's about like 7 foundational flows that every brand kind of should have. And these might change, maybe number 6 and number 7, but more or less, I always say there's like the top 4, which is the welcome, which should be anywhere between best practices is between 8 to 15 emails long. Then we have the browse abandonment, the cart abandonment, and the checkout abandonment. And one of the things that I've noticed a lot in my audits is that people actually have like a cart abandonment, but it's actually the checkout abandonment. So it's once someone has started a checkout. So it's really making sure that you have these 4 different defined flows. After those 4, it's making sure you have a new customer, a customer win back, and a re-engagement flow. Again, those are kind of the top 7 flows that I see everyone has. So getting those fully optimized as soon as possible. And then, looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for our clients, we're already starting to look at like a pre-purchase Black Friday, Cyber Monday flow, or a post-purchase Black Friday, Cyber Monday flow. Or, one of the things that a lot of our brands do is they'll change the look and feel on their website to be Black Friday, Cyber Monday themed, or in December, more festive season. So it's making sure that, again, that cohesivity between what's happening on your website and what's happening in your emails. So we can actually go in there and create Black Friday, Cyber Monday welcome emails, or browse abandonment cart. Again, there's so much different strategy, but one of the things that we like to do is leverage the data and say, hey, what's actually going to have the biggest impact on your brand and what flow is missing today?
I absolutely agree with Ariel. So kind of wanted to add some additional information to what Ariel said, as like really emphasize the creative content within the emails, like design and also copywriting. It is kind of imperative and super important to go in that specific state of mind, because it's thematic and kind of all of us get kind of hyped because yes, it explains a specific mode where we spend some money to buy gifts for ourselves and for others. So having that specific creative deliverable kind of tailored to that specific holiday is really important for retention, return of investments, and kind of gaining more and more revenue.
Yeah, 100%. I have to plus one that, really diving in and creating the specific design, the specific copy, the ICP around specific deliverables and specific consumers is imperative, right? Like you mentioned, a really well-designed web page, email, on-site stack for BFCM to me is a no-brainer, right? And to really dive in and create those experiences that actually create that cohesive feel for the brand can take a brand so much farther than a number of other smaller iterations that they may think are or are not necessary. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. On top of, I know Ariel mentioned those 7 flows, and especially down into those 4 flows, we kind of call them the Fab 4 at Klaviyo, right? The welcome series, and then those 3 different types of abandonment flows. Absolutely necessary. Some of the things that we would recommend at Klaviyo for those specific flows, if you're looking to leverage them for BFCM, really diving into, again, the time sensitivity here. So if we're auditing a flow, let's say we have a welcome series that goes out, immediately after a text message, right? We're probably not going to change that too much, the timing. But let's say we have an abandoned cart or a browse abandonment, and typically a brand, of course, this can change, but let's say you have a 3-hour or 4-hour abandoned cart where you're sending it 4 hours later. For BFCM, let's bring that down. Let's take those flow triggers and bring that down to like an hour or 30 minutes or something of that nature, so that we're reaching in and, again, asking for that permission from that consumer, and just not letting one of our competitive brands do the same thing and probably get to them faster. So I always recommend shorter flow triggers and shorter flow times for BFCM, especially for abandonment type flows. I know we mentioned like creating the specific copy and iteration and design around specific deliverables, and the same thing is true. I love to create specific flow variations as well. Now, this is getting a little bit deeper. Say we have an abandoned cart flow that goes out to an email and SMS subscriber with an order volume of 250 or over. Cool. They can get their specific copy and their specific discounts and everything. But let's say we're just sending out an email to someone like myself who's just subscribed to email and has a cart level, under 250. Cool. That's another specific opportunity to really customize and create that design copy. So I always say personalize as much as you possibly can. And if you can't personalize more, then hey, delivering that best customer experience in a different way is always a good option as well. But of course, I think we could probably sit here and talk about these audit iterations for the entire webinar. So I'll definitely take a pause here.
Real quick, Dan, another thing is that these automations, it's like, what happens before? As you mentioned, collecting email and SMS, by having like a standard offer, and then also maybe an exit intent, just really helps to get more people going through these flows. And obviously we can help create holiday specific pop-ups for your team. Klaviyo's got a great pop-up integration in there. So we always recommend kind of having at least 2, again, the standard offer and then an exit intent, just to really make sure that we can capitalize and we're hitting them at the right time with the different offers.
Yeah, totally. And one last thing I'll mention here is with the forms, like let's leverage that targeting, right? Let's dive into that segment data. Let's dive into the consumer data we have to, have a couple different sign-up forms going with those specific offers. So, anyone who's only subscribed to email, cool. Maybe we send them a specific SMS offer that would really, really benefit them. Or say, hey, they've been on our email and SMS list for 6.5 months and they've purchased 3 or more times. Maybe they get their own special specific offer that's only available to that segment. So use the targeting. It's there for you. Dive into segmentation and really position your offers, like Ariel mentioned, even before anyone gets started with your brand.
I think everything we're mentioning here too, it's just good to kind of plug in. Like we are able to develop these strategies and do all of this personalization through Klaviyo and the data that we have access to within Klaviyo. And that's something that I've seen working at in-house e-commerce brands before previously, is that like we never had access to all that rich customer data where we could really target and personalize that messaging either within email, SMS, or even pop-ups in your website. There's so much more personalization that you can do now leveraging tools like Klaviyo. And we've seen in the market, there's tons of industry research about how this is what consumers are looking for. I mean, we've all kind of been burned in the past when e-commerce really was born, just ordering things online without like really understanding how it was going to help you personally. And now consumers are a lot more wiser to that, and they want to know, like, how does this benefit me and my pain point, my situation, and really understanding what it is that they're spending their money on. So being able to talk to that specific customer with the data that you have access to within Klaviyo is going to be a game changer and set you miles apart from any competitor. All right, so we've talked about auditing and optimizing your automations. Now let's get a little bit deeper into those emails and SMS messages. Now, these are the assets that are going to be within those automations. You might also have some one-off campaigns of email and SMS. So we want to make sure that we're taking a look at not just how the automation is set up and how it's performing, but what is the actual content within there as well. So what are some best practices or techniques, especially utilizing Klaviyo and all of the data we have to leverage within that platform to help audit and optimize the email and SMS messages for the holiday season?
I'm not sure if anyone else wants to take this one. I can just dive in again, if that's okay. I love to just talk about this. I think, we mentioned a little bit before with that first and zero party data, right? Diving in here and understanding what's in front of you is crucial, right? And to create a really great email or to create a really great SMS, I think that there's a little bit of opportunity to even maybe overthink it, right? And I think to maybe overthink what we're sending and overthink the campaigns that we're diving into. And I totally understand, right? I think with ecom, with Klaviyo, with data, there's a lot of opportunity here to not know what you don't know, and that's totally okay. And I think that's why, we have, webinars like this. We get to team up with great agency partners like Smartbug to deliver this type of information. Because again, what I'll mention here is that it's not one size fits all. So any type of campaign that we're sending out for BFCM specifically, I like to start first with who are we actually sending this to, right? Is this audience segment actually going to want to interact with this message? Why? Why are they going to do that? Why are they going to actually dive in and buy from us and actually click on our links and see our copy and see our creative? Well, it all starts again in that personalization. And as we're bringing in the first party and zero party data, that's when we need to create the specific segments for that ICP. And of course, I can keep going on and on and on and on for this. But I think even backing it up, and I'll let everyone else here talk on design and copy and strategy and things of that nature. My biggest recommendation here is to have specific segments with specific ICPs before we send out a campaign, to not have massive unsubscribes, to not send out an SMS message to your entire list and potentially, hit some type of spam filter. No, let's segment our sends to reduce oversending and of course reduce overspending as well. So that's my little spiel here. Would love to hear what everyone else has to say.
Yeah, Dan, I think the segmentation piece is massive, right? Really personalizing the emails. You can create this beautifully created email, but if you're not sending it to the right person at the right time, and into the right segment, that could be crucial to your business. I mean, I was on a brand and looking at bathing suits, and then I got sent like winter clothing. Like different examples like that is just like things of like you don't want to be doing. So one of the 4 segments that we kind of talk about, and I think, Klaviyo has kind of branded these terminologies, so I'm going to use your terminology again, but the first one is like high rollers. These are your frequent purchasers who routinely exceed your average order value and have bought in the last 60 days, right? So these are the people you really want to take the time to focus on, especially for leading into the holidays. After your high rollers, you have your potential high rollers. So this could be like a recent shopper who's exceeded the average order value on their initial purchase in the last 60 days. So again, really defining the different content that you're sending to them. So you have your high rollers, your potential high rollers, then you have your brand enthusiasts. So this is someone who, as a frequent shopper, who spends less on their average order value and has bought in the last 60 days. So everything we're talking about right now is in the last 60 days, right? So that's your brand enthusiast. Then after that, you have those people that are waiting for the wow, right? Waiting for that wow factor. So this could be a previous customer who maybe just kind of window shops, but hasn't really purchased in the last 120 days. So these are kind of 4 segments I would definitely say you want to have up and running for Black Friday, Cyber Monday to really help you own in on the content and the different campaigns that you can send to them.
These are kind of all great. I mean, to add just to Ariel's point, I encourage everyone to create a segment of prospects. Probably you would be surprised how many there are in. And probably this is the best moment to kind of convert them to customers. So always try to kind of segment out the audience and find out what is going on in the customer journey and approach with it. So like the biggest effort and also maybe the key point of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you will also kind of capture a lot of new customers or prospects. And again, to kind of really tie them down to your brand and kind of build the specific loyalty to your products and to your brand, it is important to kind of include, let's say, reviews, some UGCs, and kind of build upon segments which are based on interests. So that will help out to for someone that is new to your brand to really tie down and build the trust, see how others benefit from your product, and maybe they will purchase that product, wait for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and really really spend the money with your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. These are all really great points that we're chatting through here. I'm excited, but I also want to ask more specifically for Dan. I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I feel like we've talked a lot about like general email and SMS campaigns, but what would you share specifically for SMS?
So there's a lot to share here, right? For SMS, I think a lot of the same rules apply for SMS that they do for email. But of course, one thing I want to mention to anyone listening, anyone who maybe hasn't started with SMS or is just getting started, there are a lot of similarities between what works for SMS and what works for email. However, SMS should never be a replacement of your email strategy, right? It should just supercharge what you're doing. And that's some of the biggest benefit of the Klaviyo consolidation story, right? This vertically integrated stack where we can take the data from email, from SMS, from reviews, on and on and on to get more personalized. And I think with SMS, again, leaning into time sensitivity, leaning into understanding who is more likely to actually interact with this message, right? And we don't want to be sending in the blind. We don't want to mass, batch and blast our SMS messages any time of the year, but especially during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because it just means that we could be spending way more than we actually need to generate a sale. So when it comes to SMS, a couple of things I like to touch on. First of all, building it into that integrated and or consolidated SMS and email strategy to understand that, okay, maybe if we have the same type of campaign that's going out, maybe Kira makes more sense to send her an SMS and maybe Dan makes more sense to send an email because we've seen that the data shows that Kira is more likely to lean into that SMS messaging. So one, of course, again, we can say it 1,000 times, we'll say it 1,000 more, leveraging segmentation and personalization for SMS to not use credits where they don't necessarily need to be. Second off, I think my favorite things I love to see during BFCM, leading, say, a sale with an SMS or even finalizing a sale with an SMS. One of my favorite things I saw last year specifically for BFCM was some of those last chance type sales, right? We're really squeezing that orange out for all of its juice, say on the Wednesday after Cyber Monday, right? We have so much information. Say if someone like myself is browsing a brand, and I'm clicking and I'm adding and I'm not purchasing, hey, let's try a last chance send to anyone in this type of opportunity, right? I think a waiting for wow segment is a great chance here to send a last chance SMS message. But again, we can do other things like unlocking new deals and discounts for someone that comes through SMS, right? Using specific sales that are only on our SMS channel to bring more revenue through that particular channel versus SMS, right? I think that there's so many great opportunities here. The thing that I want to mention is, again, just because there's more, TAM out there, total addressable market out there to send to, does not mean we need to send to every single person. We should never be doing this. So let's lean into those SMS best practices. Let's get targeted. And of course, let's just kind of find new things that work, right? I think SMS is a great opportunity to stand out from the crowd and maybe try something new that maybe hasn't been done previous year, right? I think a great example of this is a brand last year that used SMS as the kickoff point for a little scavenger hunt on their actual brand's website. The only people that were able to even get this opportunity were their SMS VIPs. And essentially they hid discount codes throughout their entire website and throughout some of their product or PDP pages. So I thought that was a really interesting use case that I hadn't seen previously. And I think that there's going to be some really interesting stuff coming down the pipeline for this BFCM specifically as it revolves around SMS. But again, make sure we're sending the right message to the right person at the right time. That's the biggest thing that I can mention.
Absolutely. I think we've said this a million times, like you said, but we'll continue to say it, is it's all about the right person, right time. And that's all of e-commerce all year round, not just BFCM, but of course, during the BFCM and holiday season, when every single brand is trying to get in front of every single consumer, it's even more important than ever that you're talking to the right people and not bombarding them at a time where they're not going to be receptive to your messages. So diving a little bit deeper into that note, then I want to give you guys an opportunity to talk through some BFCM email and SMS tips. And this can be related to the content within those, to the automations, to the strategy of setting it up. But share with us, again, this could be based on things that you've learned or things that you're seeing emerging in the market. What are some tips that you guys have to share as it pertains to BFCM and holiday season?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'll just be short and sweet, but like exactly what Dan said is like, if you're not doing SMS yet, like this is a great time to start building that brand up. And you can collect SMS, like not just through a pop-up, but you can do it in flows and different newsletters and different campaigns, because Black Friday Cyber Monday is a great way to provide like exclusive deals that are only relevant to SMS. And so, by making it feel exclusive, really makes people want to, that little extra incentive to like buy sooner than later. So if you haven't done SMS, definitely say this is the best way to do it, is utilizing your email list right now. So Alan, I'll pass that back over to you.
I mean, yes, the biggest and important thing is to kind of build the excitement because of the sale. And that is something that keeps us engaged and kind of just wanting to buy that specific product at the specific sale. So it is important to build that out and kind of communicate directly and having sense of urgency when the Black Friday and Cyber Monday comes. So, I mean, it is also like, if we tend to think about like many emails are sent during that sale, and it is important to make yourself a bit different than other brand when it comes to subject lines, when it comes to content, keeping it really on a point, keeping it really kind of, as I mentioned before, creative and stand out in a lot of emails in our inboxes. It is super, super important.
No, that's 1,000% true. I'm glad that you mentioned the email portion, right? I think our inboxes are really full during the whole year. And then when BFCM comes around, you look and you're like, oh, wow, like that's a lot of emails, and you're thinking like, how can I possibly parse through all of these emails as a consumer, right? Of course, at Klaviyo, right? That's, our bread and butter. But sometimes as a consumer, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of emails. So I think that, again, leaning into the specific channel use, right, for specific use cases is massive. I love how Ariel mentioned the fact that your email list is sometimes going to be the most powerful piece of data that you have, right? Like that's That's your data. That's your information. If, you get banned off of, Meta or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you don't like take those followers with you, right? You probably have to go back and use one of your own channels like email or SMS to try and regrow that audience on a potentially new platform. So sometimes the best growth levers are actually right there in front of you. I love the idea of using email to collect SMS. I love the idea of sending out those specific messages to people that are not subscribed to SMS. But as we get even deeper and deeper and deeper, things like building hype. I love that you mentioned that, Alan, because we mentioned a lot for this year specifically. I'm loving this. I'm really interested in seeing some things like product drop RSVPs, right? Where we can build that urgency with a specific product that we know someone is interested in. I personally would say SMS is a great way to actually send out this RSVP offer. But outside of product drop RSVPs, I'm loving things like, exclusive shopping windows. We're seeing that those are going to be a really great opportunity here. And then I think for your copy, when you think about, okay, how do we want to do this? How do we want to do an RSVP or a product drop or whatever it may be? Having the copy set and ready to roll as you're planning is the best thing you can do so that you can iterate and test before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know this was a piece of the puzzle we were speaking about in our pre-webinar meeting, right? Like, when should we test? When should we iterate? Try things throughout the year, right? Try things throughout the year. Try things throughout the summer. We all probably agree that testing during BFCM isn't necessarily best practice, but this is the opportunity to really understand, hey, what specific subject lines are really hitting for this segment, right? Like, does this segment prefer SMS or MMS with some type of image or GIF or whatever it may be? We want to make sure that any thought that we may have for BFCM, like, oh, will this person like this? Test it. Let's try. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like during a non-busy, non-high volume time of year. And then we can iterate and get into some of those best practices. And I think, again, when we're diving into the granular examples, there's so much variety and so much variation between brands, industries, sending cadences, budgets, things of that nature. That's hard to give specific examples, but really just leaning in to BFCM as a time where we know, hey, we're gonna have to put some work in. You can't fake the work that you put into BFCM, but the results really do show, right? So that's just one thing I wanted to add there as well.
I just wanted to say one other thing, because I was on a call the other day, and Klaviyo does have reviews now as part of their platform. So, especially during the holiday season, people are ordering more, they're buying more, really listening to what they have to say is not going to only help your brand, but also help you on your product set and what you should be maybe changing or altering. But again, just getting those reviews makes your product more accountable. And the more reviews you have, we all are shoppers here, right? So we all are going there reading and what people say. But I think that's just something important to note, that Klaviyo does have that in their software now. So
yeah, no, that's a huge point. I'm glad that you mentioned it. I don't buy without an image these days. I need a picture. I need something, right? Give me anything other than just a line of information from who knows where. And that's one thing with reviews that we really wanted to make easy, right? The collection of image, the ability to use that user-generated content, not only on your site, but then in your ads, right? In your emails, in your SMS. So again, bringing it back to that consolidated effort. Now, when someone leaves a review, and we can use Klaviyo's custom questions to actually ask them specific questions about themselves. Now we could say, hey, do you have dry, normal, or oily skin? As a custom question, they can answer that. And now we'll go back as a profile property that we can then use for segmentation, right? So that means we have an even deeper segment of someone who just gave us, again, that zero-party data that we were speaking about earlier. So yeah, again, that consolidated effort, the data altogether is massive for this. And of course, all of us here are more than happy to help anyone that's looking to really learn more about this. So I could talk about this all day.
That's great. And I think that's a great segue into kind of talking about, leveraging, we think this is a common topic throughout this whole webinar, but leveraging your zero and first party data, especially for those, like we said, who are already within Klaviyo. All of that's still accessible to you right now. So you can go in right after watching this and start diving through what your consumers are doing, how they're interacting with all of your content, with your website, how often they're engaging, how much they're spending, and all of that's going to be so useful for your automations as well as the content within your emails. So looking at, what subject lines are people clicking on more? Are they clicking on things with more emojis? Are they clicking on things where you're personalizing with their names? Just all of that, those small, minute things that could have an effect on conversions within your campaign performance. All of that data is accessible to you. So as much as, we can dive into new trends and, what other brands are doing, really all you need is within your own customer data platform, Klaviyo. So diving into that is going to be really important to making sure that your entire BFCM campaign is actually performing and being leveraged the way that it should be. So as we are kind of wrapping up, I just want to kind of point out, like we've talked about quite a few things to do to prepare for BFCM, probably a little bit too much for one person to do on their own. And especially when it comes into diving in, like we said, to auditing and optimizing your campaigns and emails and really understanding your audience. So we have a few resources that we're going to be sending to you after this webinar. So you'll get a follow-up email with some additional resources that'll help you with planning your BFCM and holiday campaigns. And then if you need support, so let's say we've talked about some things here that you're like, I have no idea how to do that or even where to get started. That's why we are here. That's why we have Ariel and all of our e-commerce experts at Smartbug who work with countless brands during BFCM and the holiday season to make sure everything is up and running as it should be, and making sure we're actually leveraging the data and the messaging and the content to generate the most conversions and the highest amount of revenue that we possibly can. So if that is you and you're looking for some support, or you have questions about where to get started, feel free to book a call. Ariel is going to be here to chat with you guys. And she, as we said, is the expert in optimizing, auditing, and helping you optimize your automations. So really looking forward to chatting with you guys. And again, don't forget to check your inbox for that email for some more resources as well. So thank you guys again so much for joining. Do you guys have any last takeaways or any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, this has been really fun, guys. Thanks so much. As Kira said, on one of those resources, there'll be a link to my calendar. Would love to get to know who we're talking to today and really dive deep into the more Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategies. But like Kira said, we gave you guys a lot of information, and maybe you just don't have the time or the bandwidth or the team to really build out these strategies for you. And that's what we're here for. We've talked about Klaviyo, but as Smartbug is a full service digital marketing agency, we can also talk about those other omni channels, what you guys are doing in Meta, anything for paid, again, we look at the big picture at the end of the day. So click on the link. I'm excited to chat with you. Thanks so much for having me here today, team.
Thanks, Ariel.
Awesome. I think I can just give my final takeaway. Again, just want to thank everyone here for having us. Klaviyo is here to help, right? Of course, the team at Smartbug is absolutely fantastic. Really glad to be here. They can help you with so many different things. We, of course, have a number of resources as well. I know we have a new BFCM course in our Klaviyo Academy that dives into a number of the topics that we spoke about if you want to learn on your own time. But the last thing about BFCM that I'll mention is even when BFCM is going on and even when BFCM is over, it's never over, right? Black Friday, Cyber Monday is never over. E-commerce is never over. The industry is never sleeps. It's just the beginning of taking all of that data that we got for BFCM and then leveraging it for the beginning of the year. So one last thing I want to mention, hey, as we're planning, fantastic for the actual, day or days, but let's make sure we're also prepping for what we do after so we can iterate and move quickly and be agile with that information and data to really hone in on that insight. But again, thanks everyone for having me. Super pumped to be here with such an amazing team, such an amazing squad. Hopefully I can be back sometime again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate you being here for sure. And thank you again, everybody, for joining. We're glad to have you, glad and excited to talk about all things e-commerce with you guys. And we look forward to seeing you on our next SmartTake with Klaviyo episode. So stay tuned. Thank you.